Hello, my name is James Conrad, and it's my pleasure to be here with you for the 70-410 Installing and Configuring Windows Server 2012. Now, if you're an experienced administrator and have worked with Windows of previous versions, then this is going to be a great place for you to start to get to know Windows Server 2012. It's chock full of new features. There's a lot of new exciting things here, and I really think that this is probably the best version of Windows Server to ever come out. Now, if you're also new to Windows Server 2012, this is also a great place to start because it'll take you from the ground up and get you at a competent level of installing and configuring Windows Server 2012. And this might be the case if maybe you've been working the help desk and then finally you got an invitation to play with the cool kids up in the server group. And anytime a geek is invited to play with the cool kids, that's a good thing because we never get those invitations. So anyway, what we can take a look at here is the various topics that we'll address in this series. One of those is how to install and configure servers. This is going to have to do with planning for upgrades, installations, planning different server roles, looking at server core, at least in brief to begin with here. And we'll also learn some basic PowerShell functions. Now that's pretty cool because PowerShell is really the way of the future for Windows administration. We'll also take a look at how to modify your installation. This is new. We haven't really done much with this in the past because we haven't been able to, other than formatting your hard drive and starting over. Well, now what we can do is to do a number of different things, using cool features like Features on Demand, or we can convert from server core to a full GUI, or perform a minimal server install. In fact, you can even work with images and add and remove features from offline images. Figure that out. We'll take a look here at server core as well. This is another big part of the future for Windows, and it's really found a lot of popular installations out there. This is because you can install server core and administer it remotely, and you don't have to be concerned about the absence of a UI or a graphical user interface with this. Of course, there's a lot of things you do need to know how to administer sitting at a console, but I'll also show you how to administer it remotely so that you can use a UI. The next thing we'll take a look at is Active Directory management. This is a pretty critical part of course, any Server 2012 environment because that's the foundation of everything that we work with. We'll take a look at some of the basic concepts such as the differences between the various domain structures that you can work with. We'll take a look at how to work with and create a domain controller, working with individual user accounts, organizational units, joining computers to the domain, a lot of those features. And then we'll also take a look at account automation. This is going to help us to, en masse, create a lot of accounts very quickly, very useful for things such as lab environments where we're testing out software, classroom environments, these sorts of things. And even if you get a list of maybe new employees for a new department from HR or something like that, you can use that list in account automation and quickly create all of those new employees. We'll also take a look at a very important part of Active Directory administration, and that's how to work with the various groups. There's a difference between distribution, universal, domain local, domain global, all those sorts of groups that we need to be able to work with, and they have different level of scope that you can apply them to. So we'll take a look at that. We'll also take a look at organizational units, which is the main way that we as administrators keep ourselves sane with all of these accounts that we have to deal with. And then continuing on, we'll take a look at group policy objects. We'll take a look at the basic essentials of a group policy, why you want to use it, how they work, things like this, as well as multiple level group policy objects. And this is something you can use on an individual computer, but with multiple users. We also take a look at the central store. This is a great way to make sure that your group policy templates, which are an essential part of group policy, are always kept up to date and always on the same version. We also take a look at how the group policy mechanism refreshes itself. The scope of management is a critical part of any group policy understanding, and this is important both for the exam as well as the real world, so really got to focus on that one. And then there's also the preferences. This is a new set of settings that we can work with in recent versions of Windows Server, and it opens up a whole new world for us. We'll take a look at starter GPOs. This is a great way to kind of set up more or less a template of settings so that you can distribute them to other locations throughout your environment. We take a look at security settings and security templates, which are important to be able to apply so that we can, again, apply a whole bunch of security settings all at once. We'll take a look at software lockdown. There's a couple of different ways of doing this, and one's more effective than the other, but one of them is better for down-level clients or older Windows clients. And then we'll take a look at Windows Firewall here as well, which you can configure locally, but hey, you might as well do it using a group policy object because because it's going to have a much more far-reaching effect and be much more effective and easier to administer. Then we move on to IP version 4. It's important to know some things about how to subnet, for example. Know how to read an IP address. It's really not just the numbers that you see. There's really something behind the scenes there that you need to be very well aware of, or else you can really get lost in an IP version 4 environment. We also take a look at IP version 6, which, boy, are those ever hard to read. It's all in hex, and they're long, and there's a huge amount of potential IP addresses that can be used out there. So you can have some things that's really essential to understand with IP version 6. We take a look at DHCP, which is how our clients will get IP addresses. You have to have that properly configured so that everybody can communicate on the network. Likewise, you need to have DNS properly configured. Without it, everyone would have to memorize each other's IP addresses. Wouldn't that be a mess? So we've got to make sure that that's properly configured so we can work with names instead. And then one of the cool things in the recent versions of Windows Server is, of course, Hyper-V. That's where virtualization is taking place, and you can use multiple machines inside of a single physical machine. A lot of different cool features we'll look at there in terms of how to work with it. Local storage, of course, is very important, but there's new ways of managing that local storage. Some pretty exciting ways of being able to come up with different redundancies and working with a storage pool. Lots of cool things we'll take a look at there. There's also shared NTFS permissions, which of course are important to understand so that your users can get access to what they need to get access to and be denied access to what they're not supposed to access. And then finally, our last two items here are some additional storage topics, such as how to work with offline files, volume shadow copy, quotas, things of this nature. We'll also take a look here at configuring printers, which is not usually people's favorite job, but it is an important and an essential part of any administrator's job function, and certainly a high-profile one in case printing is not working. Your users will definitely not be very happy about that. So we need to work with those and be in the know about how to properly configure those. Well, I'm very excited with this series to endeavor on this journey with you. I do hope that you enjoy everything that you see here. Let's go ahead and get started with your first nugget.